I stood in that sterile principal's office, the fluorescent hum a dull throb against my temples, tears burning, hot and fierce behind my eyes. Two smug, self-satisfied parents sat opposite me, their words like venom-tipped arrows, declaring me a profound failure. They insisted with chilling certainty that my daughter, Martha, deserved expulsion, all because I was a single mother, a bad woman, utterly incapable of raising a child alone. They had no idea that with one trembling phone call, I was about to summon a man into that very room, a force who would make them regret every cruel, judgmental word they had ever uttered. If you have ever been told you are insufficient, that your life's choices render you a target, a vulnerable mark for the world's judgment, then this story will resonate with the deepest corners of your soul. Smash that like button if you believe true family isn't merely about blood, but about who stands with you, who shows up when the world conspires to break you. And subscribe because we are about to unveil the undeniable truth. A mother's fierce, unyielding love, coupled with the true father's unwavering protection, possesses the power to shatter any bully, any injustice. My name is Havel. I am 38 years old, and for most of my life, I meticulously constructed walls so impossibly high that no love could ever scale them. But crucially, no pain could ever reach me either. I learned, early, brutally, that men were not anchors, but liabilities. My biological father, Christopher, was my first, most devastating teacher. I was barely a teenager, 13 years old, when I discovered my mother, Clara, hunched over in the kitchen, her body racked with silent sobs, clutched in her hand the undeniable evidence of his affair. He didn't just cheat, he vanished. He abandoned us completely, dissolving into thin air while leaving us to struggle in a cramped two-bedroom apartment while he began a shiny new life with someone younger, someone he deemed more worthy. My mother, resilient but broken, worked 3 grueling jobs to keep us afloat. I wore every piece of clothing secondhand, an unspoken badge of our poverty. And from that crucible of abandonment, I absorbed lesson number 1. A man's love is inherently conditional, profoundly temporary, and always comes with an expiration date. When my mother, 3 long years after my father's cruel departure, tentatively married William, I was 16 and simmering in an incandescent fury. William was everything Christopher was not. Stable, kind, genuinely good, and to my adolescent terror, wildly successful. He owned half of the commercial real estate in our burgeoning city. He commanded money, power, and influence, and that, above all, terrified me. I perceived him not as a savior, but as a ticking bomb, a polished, insidious version of the same poison that had already destroyed my mother once. I wanted none of his money. I wanted none of his unsolicited, fake fatherly advice. I wanted nothing from him at all. So I rejected him completely, coldly, meticulously. I refused to call him dad. I politely but firmly declined every gift he offered. When he tried earnestly to pay for my college education, I stubbornly refused, choosing instead to burden myself with the crushing weight of student loans. The day I turned 18, I packed a single bag, walked out of that house, and never once looked back. I met Michael when I was 23, still working double shifts at a bustling downtown cafe, frantically trying to pay off those very college loans I'd so stubbornly taken rather than accepting William's proffered help. Michael was 25, impossibly charming, in that effortless, charismatic way that, in hindsight, should have been my first glaring red flag. He was a graphic designer, perpetually effusive about his next big project, always perpetually one breakthrough away from success. He saw me, and in my desperate, starved heart, that was enough. After years of meticulously constructing impenetrable walls around myself, after tirelessly convincing myself that I didn't need anyone, having someone, anyone, truly see me felt like a sudden gasp of oxygen after a lifetime of drowning. He would wait for me after my exhausting shifts, bring me coffee, tell me I was beautiful, even when I was utterly depleted and covered in the sticky residue of coffee stains. He made me laugh, a pure, unburdened sound I hadn't realized I'd suppressed. He made me feel less profoundly alone. We moved in together after only 6 months. It felt reckless and perfect, a heady, intoxicating mix. For the first time since my father's brutal abandonment, I dared to believe that perhaps, just perhaps, not all men were poison. Perhaps I could finally possess something real, something enduring. When I discovered I was pregnant, 2 years into our whirlwind relationship, I was terrified, yet infused with a fragile, burgeoning hope. Michael, at first, seemed genuinely excited. He spoke enthusiastically about baby names, of finding a bigger apartment, of stepping up to his new role. I believed him. I allowed myself the dangerous luxury of imagining a future where I wasn't destined to repeat my mother's heartbreaking story. But pregnancy, I soon discovered, changes everything. It strips away the comforting layers of fantasy, revealing the raw, unvarnished truth of who people really are when the abstract becomes real, when love demands genuine sacrifice instead of mere sentiment. Michael began staying out later, his absences stretching into the pre-dawn hours. He'd return home smelling faintly of stale bars and transparent excuses. He stopped asking about my doctor's appointments. He stopped touching me. And when I was 7 months pregnant, swollen, exhausted, and profoundly vulnerable, I found the texts. He wasn't even sorry. He claimed I had changed, that I was always tired and no fun anymore, as if the miraculous act of growing his child within my body was some profound personal inconvenience to his social life. He declared he needed space, that he wasn't ready for this, that perhaps we'd rushed into things. He packed a bag, a mirror image of my father's callous abandonment, and left. Just like my father, just like every man I had ever foolishly dared to trust. Martha, my beautiful daughter, was born 6 weeks later. Michael wasn't there. He never met her. He never sent a single dollar of support, never called. He simply erased us from his life as if we had never existed at all. That was the moment when lesson number 2 became irrevocably carved into the deepest bedrock of my soul. Every man will eventually betray you. It's not a question of if, it is always, inevitably, a question of when. And in that brutal confirmation, every cynical belief I harbored about William, my stepfather, solidified. I had been right to reject him at 16. I had been right to refuse his help because this brutal, casual abandonment is precisely what men do. They promise, they charm, they seem different, and then inevitably, they destroy you. For the next 15 years, William persisted. He sent checks I meticulously tore into confetti-like pieces. He called on my birthdays, and I let every single call go straight to voicemail. He would tell my mother to tell me he was proud of me, and I would roll my eyes, dismissing it as another empty male platitude. I was so fiercely determined to prove I didn't need a man, any man, that I meticulously locked myself away from the only one who ever truly, selflessly tried to be there for me. Then came the crisis, a devastating rupture that shattered everything. My beautiful, kind 10-year-old daughter, Martha, came home crying for the 4th consecutive day. The bullying had begun subtly, insidiously. Whispers, cruel giggles, pointed exclusion at recess. But it escalated, rapidly, viciously. A girl named Amanda, the progeny of 2 of the most arrogant, entitled parents in the entire school district, had systematically turned Martha's life into a waking nightmare. Amanda didn't merely push or tease. She was cruel in a way that felt calculated, learned, perhaps, from the insidious adults around her. Every single day, she would corner Martha, her voice a poisonous whisper, delivering the same venomous line. You don't have a daddy because your mommy is a bad woman. That's why he left. That's why no one wants you. She was weaponizing my single status, using the deepest, most agonizing wound I had spent decades desperately hiding. And she was systematically carving that wound into my daughter's innocent heart. Martha, my brave, resilient Martha, tried to be strong. She tried to ignore it all, but when Amanda, with a casual cruelty that made my blood run cold, deliberately destroyed Martha's art project, something my daughter had poured weeks of her heart and soul into, and then laughed, sneering, "Fatherless girls don't deserve to win anything." Martha finally snapped. She pushed Amanda hard. Amanda fell, scraping her knee. The very next day, the dreaded call came. Principal James Harrison wanted to see me immediately. The air in Principal Harrison's office felt thick, suffocating, laden with unspoken judgments. I walked in, immediately sensing I was outnumbered, outmaneuvered. Amanda's parents, Mr. Andrew Denton and Mrs. Amber Denton, were already seated, impeccably dressed as if preparing for a courtroom showdown. Andrew, a mid tier lawyer, compensated for his lack of stature with a booming performative arrogance. Amber, a real estate agent, carried herself with an entitled air, convinced her commission checks elevated her to royalty. Both regarded me with undisguised contempt, as if I were something repulsive they'd scraped off the bottom of their expensive shoes. Principal Harrison sat rigidly behind his desk, fingers steepled, clearly uncomfortable, eager to expedite this unpleasantness. "Miss Hazel, thank you for coming in. We have a serious situation to discuss." I tried desperately to explain. I tried to articulate the weeks of insidious emotional torture Amanda had inflicted. I pulled out my phone, eager to show them the heartbreaking text Martha had sent me, the ones where she begged me, tears streaming, not to make her return to school. But before I could finish, Amber cut me off, her voice sharp, cold, and utterly dismissive. "Enough," she snapped. "Your daughter physically assaulted mine. She pushed Amanda to the ground. That, Miss Hazel, is violence. And frankly, I'm not surprised." I blinked. The abruptness of her accusation momentarily disoriented me. "Excuse me?" Amber leaned forward, her eyes gleaming with something ugly, triumphant, predatory. "Children who lack structure, who don't have a stable home life, tend to act out. Amanda told us all about Martha's situation. No father, just you, and clearly you're overwhelmed. Some women just aren't equipped to raise children alone." The room began to spin, the words a dizzying, suffocating assault. This was not about a schoolyard push. This was a calculated character assassination. Andrew, playing the role of the reasonable, judicious lawyer, slid a piece of paper across the desk. "We're willing to let this go without involving the police or pursuing assault charges, which we absolutely could if you sign this." I looked down. It was a meticulously typed letter of apology, a formal admission that I had failed as a parent, that my inadequate home environment had directly caused Martha's aggression, that I took full responsibility for being a bad mother. "You want me to say I'm a bad mother?" My voice cracked, raw with disbelief and burgeoning rage. "We want you to take accountability," Amber purred sweetly, as if bestowing upon me a great favor. "And maybe consider some parenting classes, a male role model program, perhaps. Children need fathers, Miss Hazel. That's just biology." Principal Harrison, visibly cringing, cleared his throat. "Miss Hazel, until you sign this apology and demonstrate sufficient remorse, Martha will remain suspended. We can't allow violent students back on campus without consequences." I sat there utterly frozen, humiliated, gutted. They weren't just punishing Martha for a single push. They were systematically punishing me for every difficult choice I had ever made, for getting pregnant, for being abandoned, for surviving alone. They were declaring that the cruelty I had endured was in fact my fault. And now my innocent daughter was being forced to pay the devastating price. I left that office in a daze, the world blurring around me. I didn't sign anything. I just walked out, got into my car, and sat in the parking lot shaking uncontrollably. When I finally made it home, Martha was waiting. Her small face was swollen from relentless crying. She looked up at me with those big, wounded eyes and asked the question that utterly destroyed me. Mommy, why doesn't my daddy protect me? Am I suspended because Amanda is right? Because you're a bad woman? That was the moment, the precise, devastating moment when every single wall I painstakingly built over decades, every defense mechanism crumbled into dust. I realized with a searing, painful clarity that I was failing my daughter. Not because I was single, not because I was inherently inadequate, but because I was too proud, too terrified, too profoundly damaged by my past to ask for help from the one man who'd been offering it patiently, consistently for 20 long years. Martha needed a protector. She needed irrefutable proof that Amanda's cruel words were malicious lies. She needed a man to stand up, to stand for her, and show her that loyalty, protection, and unconditional love still existed in this harsh and unforgiving world. I walked into the kitchen, my hands trembling, and pulled out my phone. I scrawled with the sense of profound, almost religious significance to a contact I hadn't dared to call in 2 decades, William, my stepfather. I pressed the call button before my ingrained fears, my decades of pride, could talk me out of it. He answered on the second ring. Hazel? His voice was older, tinged with the wisdom of time, but still steady, calm, possessing a comforting strength, as if he had been patiently waiting for this call my entire life. I couldn't speak at first. My throat closed up, choked with a lifetime of suppressed emotion, but then the dam broke. It all came pouring out. The relentless bullying, the unfair suspension, the humiliating letter, the way they had publicly vilified me, called me inadequate, a bad woman who deserved to be abandoned. There was a long, profound silence on the other end of the line. Then William's voice returned, but it was no longer merely warm. It was infused with ice, a pure, controlled fury that sent a shiver down my spine. Hazel, listen to me very carefully, he said, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. You are my daughter. Martha is my granddaughter. These people have made a profound miscalculation. You have not failed her. They have failed both of you. Do not sign anything. Do not speak to anyone. I will handle this. I don't want your money, I interjected, a knee-jerk, ingrained response. This isn't about money, he interrupted, his voice softening slightly, a flicker of the old warmth returning. This is about family, and you've been my family since the day I married your mother. I'm sorry I let you push me away for so long, but I'm not letting you face this alone. Not anymore. He instructed me to meet him at the school the very next morning, 9 a.m. sharp. He would be there. I hung up the phone, staring at the phone in my hand, terrified and hopeful in equal measure. What had I just done? Would he actually show up? Or was this destined to be one more devastating disappointment? One more man who promised and ultimately failed? That night, sleep was an impossible luxury. I lay awake, every cruel word, every smug look on the Dentons' faces, replaying endlessly in the silent darkness. But at 8:55 a.m., standing, heart pounding outside Principal Harrison's office, I saw it. A sleek black car pulling up silently. The door opened, and William stepped out. He looked exactly what he was, a man radiating quiet power, substantial influence, and zero tolerance for injustice. He walked directly to me, placed a firm, reassuring hand on my shoulder, and gave me a single, steady nod. For the very first time in 20 long, isolated years, I didn't feel profoundly alone. We walked into that office together. The Dentons were already there, radiating a smug confidence that faltered the moment William entered. Principal Harrison sat behind his desk, his expression clearly indicating he was ready to expediently conclude this, forcing me to sign their humiliating document. But then William spoke. "Good morning, Mr. Harrison." The principal looked up, and his face instantly drained of all color. He recognized William immediately. Everyone in the city knew who William was. He funded half the district's charitable programs. He sat on the school board's advisory committee. He was, to all intents and purposes, untouchable. Mr. Mr. William, Harrison stammered, scrambling to his feet. "I didn't realize you were—" "I'm Hazel's stepfather," William stated calmly, his gaze sweeping the room before settling across from the Dentons, "and Martha's grandfather. I understand there's been some confusion about accountability here." Amber Denton, still clinging to her arrogance, offered a tight, condescending smile. "We're simply asking for an apology for Martha's violent behavior, sir. Surely you understand the need for discipline." William looked at her then, with the terrifying calm that always precedes utter devastation. "Mrs. Denton, let me clarify something. Your daughter has spent weeks psychologically tormenting my granddaughter, using deeply personal and cruel insults about her family. When your daughter destroyed Martha's property and mocked her for being fatherless, Martha defended herself. That is not violence. That is self-preservation." Andrew Denton leaned forward, attempting a bluster of legalistic authority. "With all due respect, Mr. William, Martha pushed our daughter." William interrupted, his voice like cold, unforgiving steel. "And your daughter has been bullying mine repeatedly, viciously, and you two have been complicit, spreading malicious gossip about my daughter's character, calling her inadequate, a bad woman. That, Mr. Denton, is defamation, and I don't tolerate it." The room fell into a profound, chilling silence. William then turned to Principal Harrison, his voice unwavering. "Here's what's going to happen. You will reinstate Martha immediately with a formal apology from the school. The Dentons will issue a written apology to both Hazel and Martha, and their daughter will be required to attend a bullying intervention program. If any of this is refused, I will take this matter to the school board, the local media, and my personal attorneys. Your choice." Principal Harrison looked as though he might faint. "Mr. William, I'm sure we can resolve this." "Then resolve it now." The Dentons' faces, initially smug, had now contorted into a mask of pure panic. Andrew attempted another bluster, but William silenced him with a single, withering look. 20 minutes later, I walked out of that office, clutching a formal apology letter, Martha's immediate reinstatement, and the undeniable knowledge that the Dentons had been utterly, completely destroyed. William didn't gloat. He simply squeezed my shoulder and said, his voice warm with genuine affirmation, "You're a great mother, Hazel. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Walking out into the golden sunlight that day, I felt something I hadn't experienced in decades. Protected, profoundly valued, truly loved. William didn't just win a fight, he gave me back my dignity. He proved with an irrefutable certainty that family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up, who stands with you, when the world tries its hardest to break you. Martha got her life back, and I, against all odds, got my father. If you believe William embodies the true definition of a real father, smash that like button. If this story sent shivers down your spine, drop a comment telling me what you would have done. And subscribe, because every week we bring you stories where justice isn't just served, it's delivered with unparalleled precision. See you in the next one.